Hi, and welcome back to A Nerd, a Teacher, and a Hockey Player, a relevant yet irreverent look at business, technology, and life in Wichita or wherever you may be. I'm Paul, I'm the nerd.
I'm Kimber, and I'm the teacher.
And I'm Jeff, I'm the hockey player. Paul, who do we have as our guest today?
Today with us, and the reason that you and Kimber are sharing a mic is because we have Mary Beth Jarvis and Connor Adler, friends of mine from NXTUS. Mary Beth, tell us who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
So NXTUS is we're a nonprofit, an entrepreneurship support organization. We are the wind beneath the wings of great entrepreneurs, helping them grow companies of significance in Kansas, but also around the heartland region. We connect them to mentors and resources that are going to help their company growth. We connect them to customers. The holy grail of growing your company, right, is figuring out how to build revenue. And then we connect them to early stage capital, risk capital, growth capital that helps them grow beyond their neighborhoods and scale their companies. And Connor, to my left, runs those programs. So he could introduce himself. What do you think?
How's everyone doing?
Good.
Good.
People say I have a face for radio, so here we go.
/ podcast.
So I run Accelerate Venture Partners. Paul is one of our members and a generous sponsor as well. Accelerate Venture Partners is a network of angel investors across the state of Kansas. We invest in companies across the region, but most of our investors are within Kansas borders. So we run that actual syndicate group. We see new deals every month. We meet each month for like a Shark Tank style pitch. And then on top of that, we also run a capital education program. So accessing growth capital, which is for Kansas-based founders who are trying to become fundraising ready or understand if they should be fundraising, because venture capital is not for everyone. We have Future Funders, which is a new initiative for young professionals in Wichita who don't know where to go to learn about establishing long-term wealth and ownership. Entrepreneurship through acquisition is a kind of a buzzword nowadays. So trying to filter through all the information that's online and bring in knowledge experts each month to talk to the young professionals. And then we have Game Changers and Champions, which I'll let Mary Beth give a good rundown of whenever you guys want or are ready. But that's a statewide pitch competition that culminated in Lawrence, Kansas at KU yesterday. So we're just coming on the tails of that.
And when we were talking about topics for the podcast, Kimber brought up the idea of entrepreneurship and the challenges of starting a business. So I thought, who better to give us kind of a wide brush of that than the two of you? So you guys are fresh off of the pitch competition. That's a bitch to say.
This is my role today. I am queen of the quarters.
So you guys are fresh off the pitch competition. What kind of businesses are getting started in Kansas?
Well, frankly, it's a bunch of like cooler than you thought we had businesses. This particular program is focused on high growth potential, innovation-based ventures. And there are more of them and cooler of them than folks realize. Frankly, even the folks that are already in the space, investors, they keep thinking they got to go out of state to find really creative innovators. They think they have to go outside the region to find capital for those innovative ventures, but it's right here. We saw incredible businesses across a range of industries. So old school industries, construction, manufacturing, that are like getting with the times, right? So digital transformations within those businesses. But then also direct to consumer, life hack kind of capabilities, but also tomorrow's industries. We're called NXTUS for a reason. We are helping entrepreneurs, linking them to mentors, resources, and investors that can help them create sort of the next us of our economy. We need to participate in the digital world of tomorrow with intentionality and robustness if we want our region to grow. And honestly, this sort of movement of modernizing industries and luring modern talent and being a place where innovators can thrive is at a moment. And I think it's a moment we've got a chance to win. Kansas, the middle of the country, because folks want to live here, raise families here, sort of build their lives here. We just got to show them that there are like-minded disruptors, innovators, and those who will bet on them in their backyard. And boy, we just spent a day up in Lawrence with 300 people in attendance, $80,000 in prize money given away, incredible speakers from LA and San Fran to Canada, right? Like all over the country. And they came because from the outside, they can see the coolness. You know, we're just sort of Midwest humble, right? We look around and wonder who would think we're the cool kids. But these entrepreneurs are just making waves and building great things. So it was a lot of fun.
So Connor, without naming names, what was the most interesting pitch that you saw this?
Ooh, that is hard without naming names.
Well, could he name
Or you
names?
can name names.
Yeah, I mean, it's done.
Okay.
We've given out the prize
So
money.
what was the most interesting pitch you saw?
I will say, I'm going to try to choose someone that maybe wasn't in the Innovative 8. Let me get back to you on that in a second.
Well, we started with 75,
Okay.
and we did it bracket style. This Game
Right.
Changers and Champions. It was the day that the Big 12 championship kicked off in Lawrence, or in KC. We were in Lawrence at the new football stadium, right? So we were playing all the sports metaphors. The first time this event was ever held was last year in Wichita, on that off day between rounds 1 and 2 of March Madness, hosted in Wichita. So we just ran with the basketball metaphors. So we started with 75 competitors and did a round of 32, a round of 16, a round of 8. And so you had to get all the way to 8. Like you had to be the 1/10 people remaining to get in front of that crowd yesterday. And then the final 4 got to actually give their full 5-minute pitches. The 8 got to do kind of a little elevator pitch. So we were at the cream of the cream of the cream by yesterday, and it was a lot of fun.
The funny part, too, is so I basically saw 75 pitches. I wasn't judging 75 pitches. We pulled in judges from across Kansas. We had ecosystem leaders, we had investors, we had some corporate leaders, and each round, we ran it like March Madness, so big round 75, 32, 16, 8. New sets of judges came in and judged. So I was monitoring that and helping on logistics and getting the people. And then yesterday, I was talking to our junior analyst after, who was sitting in and watching, making sure the judging deliberation for the Innovative 8 was going well. And I was like, I don't think I've actually seen any of these 5-minute pitches. And when I was inside when they were pitching to the audience in the Final Four, I was running the shot clock. I was worried about other logistics. So honestly,
So you weren't too deep in it.
I was and I wasn't. I know all the businesses, but I couldn't tell you who my favorite pitch was.
It's like the bride who can't remember her own wedding. That's Connor from Game Changers and Championship.
I did predict the winner, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
And who won?
SipTech.
Okay.
Familiar with SipTech and
No.
Tom McAndrew?
What do they do?
So 3D printing of piping systems. So to replace pipes is very difficult for municipalities and for anyone that has large piping. But they have a system that can basically 3D with robotics create pipes that fit into existing pipes. Am I doing a decent job of explaining?
Yeah, no, it's you take a pig that goes through a big thick pipe, so it's 48-inch water pipe for supplying a city, and it's not new, right? And it's not doing great, and it's leaking your municipal water supply out into the ground. So you go in with a robotic pig, the name for a smart device that goes into a pipeline. And first, it 3D prints a foam layer, like the inside of a football helmet, and then it 3D prints a carbon fiber layer. And so you now have a Class 4, the highest level of regulatory examination of pipes. You have a Class 4 pipe built within the existing pipe. You don't have to yank that puppy out the ground in your yard and across the street. But you now have a safe, certified for drinking water pipe that is a huge revenue. They're the only company in the country that can do this.
It's right in Wichita, Kansas.
That's awesome.
So, so we had 75 competitors across the state. A company from Wichita won, and we didn't have like a say necessarily in them winning, which was cool for us being obviously Wichita based. And just to give Mary Beth some shine there, can you tell that Mary Beth ran PR for Coke? The way that you can
take a little bit about a pipeline.
Well, and you can take a complex idea or solution and distill it in a very digestible way, which can be very difficult when we're looking at so many different.
Well, I mean, it's what we ask our founders to do every day.
Yeah.
Whether it's to an investor or to a customer, to a pitch competition audience, you've got to be able to these entrepreneurs have fire in their belly and a vision to change something, and we're making it better. And if they can't, convey that the best idea won't win. It's, they've got to be able to sell people on the value of what they've created and the difference between it and its competitors. So I just try to follow their lead.
And something we tell them too, is like a newer kind of phrasing is, can you explain it to your aunt or uncle? And I tell them that because basically, like, we look at so many companies that I kind of need them to distill it that way. And some of them are far more intelligent than me, so it helps a lot. But that distilling of getting down to the actual problem helps the founder understand what they're actually solving, because you can get so caught up in your own idea, and if there's not actual market feedback, if there's not validation, then what do you have, and how do you explain that to your aunt or uncle if you don't really have something yet, or if you can't explain what that big vision is? And you're definitely not going to be able to raise capital if you can't do it, if you can't explain what you're doing,
So I'm going to pull on that aunt and uncle thread for a second and get to something that Mary Beth wanted to talk about. Oh, yeah. He cheated up.
Aching.
I cheated up.
He cheated up. It was so easy. The generational difference between entrepreneurs, entrepreneurial support mechanisms, when's the right time to start a business, when's the past my prime time to start a business. Let's go with that.
Well, it's interesting. I think, to kickstart it, every single generation, Gen Z, millennials, alphas are not quite in this world yet. They're in middle school putting their 3D, 3-panel display up at a youth entrepreneurship challenge, and that's awesome.
No,
and
but they're hustling lemonade in my neighborhood.
They are. Buy the glass. But if you think about Gen Z, Gen X, boomers, millennials, each one of them could complete the sentence, X is the worst generation to be an entrepreneur based on the sort of stereotypes of that. But conversely, you could pull out the absolute home run facets of the generational stereotypes and why that would make them great entrepreneurs. And so we laugh about it, right? Like there's every two-sided coin, right? It has the same strength or weakness in the middle, and where does it play for you, where it play against you? As a Gen X, for example, we've stopped giving a crap what anyone thinks about us, right? So that is, on one hand, a bad characteristic for an entrepreneur. You need to listen to the market. You've got to be paying attention to your customer. Right? So you can't be...
You're not always right.
Right. On the other hand, not caring how your journey appears to others, not caring if you look sort of stupid for pivoting, at an awkward time, not caring if you're meeting somebody else's definition of success or growth or or change or build, is a huge strength. So we just we bring in, help, and move forward entrepreneurs of all ages, and it's so funny how their generational tendencies can both be huge valuable quivers in their arrow and total Achilles heels for when they're trying to build a business.
Jeff, you look like you have something on your mind.
Oh, I'm taking it all in. I'm still.
So you're not too old, Jeff, by the way. She just said you're not too old.
Not at all.
I disagree, but no, I was kind of still trying to get my head around that pipe.
The Syntax technology.
It's so
we can
cool.
introduce you to those.
Yeah, I'm intrigued.
No, it's that company, and it's a great example of a locally built. So water pipes for cities, not your sexiest industry, right? Who wakes up in the morning thinking, I'm going to bring that into this century, right? But people did. It is backed by, both from thought leader and advisor perspective, but also financially by, Jeff Turner, founding, CEO of Spirit, and longtime Boeing guy, Mark Hutton, who founded Hutton Construction, right? So there's some builders, right? There's some heavy, we make heavy stuff, and by the way, what do airplane makers do all day? They make round things as effectively and efficiently and as streamlined and as safe as they could possibly be. So you add some different old school technology, old school industry knowledge to the base of a difference-making business like that, and you get this incredible balance between boomer operational and industry experience and next gen, but we could do it differently, and you end up with this what we think could be really game-changing venture right out of here.
Exactly, that's what I think. I keep thinking about the use cases and stuff, and not tearing roads up and things.
And that was probably the catalyst. I mean, somebody probably drove down Douglas 6 months ago when they had the whole thing torn up and went, shit.
Could we not do this?
Could there not be an easier way to do this?
Right.
Well,
Another orange barrel.
And the now CEO Tommy McAndrew, he's someone that represents like a great entrepreneurial journey. Didn't necessarily start his own businesses, but was employee number 2 in leadership at various different startups around the world and here in Wichita. He definitely brings that millennial energy. He was wearing, like, if you know Tom, you'll laugh because he's got a big personality. It was at KU, right? There's huge KU involvement. Tom shows up.
At the stadium.
It's at the stadium, David Booth Memorial Stadium.
I know where this is going with that.
And Tom shows up in his Stanford basketball jersey. He played football at Stanford. So, but like that kind of you might not see that from a different generation.
Right,
it's that that risk taking. I don't know. Like, what would be your perspective on someone showing up in a basketball jersey? One, it's great for the pitch competition, playing into the themes, but then
To be not in a KU jersey.
right.
Well,
Yeah, it's a
or
little
not
risky.
in, my blazer. And
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, and that kind of is where that whole, I don't really give a shit.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
going to show up, but you care about the product, the audience, and the customer, but be you. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Own
yeah.
it.
Well,
Sin
it's-
bin.
Did I say shit?
Yeah, sin
Oh,
bin.
I
You
did
may
say
have.
shit.
May
You
have.
hear my hockey term there?
The sin bin.
Sin bin.
Sin bin.
Penalty
Sin
box.
bin. Penalty
Yeah,
box.
got
Yeah.
it.
Love it.
Well, so like Tommy's a great example, and he was changing his career trajectory before Connor formed Future Funders. But it's a perfect example. He was working at Coke, right? This region is really, really good at training up incredibly smart, productive employees and leaders for big companies. Those entrepreneurial mavericks that created whole new industries like making airplanes and all that Coke does and we're in the region are now huge companies, and they are a giant sucking sound for talent and knowledgeable professionals. But what the entrepreneur world needs is for some of them to feel in their gut that call and for them to be willing to step out, because what we aren't doing quite enough of in these last couple generations is breeding mavericks, right? So this Future Funders is designed to take folks that have achieved. They're at Textron, they're at Coke, they're at Cargill, wherever they are. But somewhere in their belly, they're thinking maybe there's a way to change my stars, right? Through ownership.
Oh, and I have a great visual for that.
Yeah.
We cooked a Mexican dish at the house the other day, and one of the steps was to cook a bunch of corn in a skillet on the stovetop. And my dog's there watching it, and she's like, it's making a weird noise, but then all of a sudden a kernel pops out, and she's like, cool, and eats it off the floor. And then all of a sudden another kernel pops out, and she's like, is this going to keep going on? I'm going to grab
This is
that.
magical.
But that kind of is a good description of what you just said, is that you need those kernels to pop out.
Yeah.
You know, you've got this pool.
You need
of,
the heat under them.
You've got this pool of awesome talent that's just cooking on the stove, and we need the kernels to pop out to start something new. And the more the kernels that pop,
right? Or to
Or
buy
even-
into something
yeah.
new, or to join something revolutionary, right? To take that risk.
to make that change.
Right.
I think the like culturally, like especially my generation. I was born in 1995.
So you're like 12.
I'm like, yeah, pretty
You're
much.
you're the youngest millennial.
I'm literally it's
you're
90,
right on.
96 or
You're what they call a
95.
tweener.
Yeah. So I saw my older cousin generation, but I having like the Social Network, the big movie come out, right? You look at like the culture and the zeitgeist of kind of that time, and Wolf of Wall Street. It was like take these big risks and this opulence. Like, I'm wearing an Irish rugby jersey. There was something called the Celtic Tiger, where it was this huge economic boom in Ireland, and there was opulence and big risk taking, and then boom,
We
the
went right
bust,
back to safe.
right?
Yeah.
And back to safe. So like the movie The Social Network is a great example of, you see beanbags and you see this kind of sexy startup space. That's not what it's really like. people have that vision in their head, then they realize it's not, and they go, okay, I'm going back to safe. And what I think there's a really cool moment that could be happening where you have all these legacy businesses in the silver wave where people are stepping out. What's going to happen to those businesses, and how do we connect them with great operators or innovators and take these legacy businesses and see what smart folks can do with them,
Or the boomers that get out of that day to day can start something new. Because, I mean, one could joke that our more senior generations aren't necessarily the best candidates to come up with some game-changing idea or start a high growth potential innovation-based business, because they're still figuring out how to not be on their speakerphone in Costco. But on the other hand,
for a second I thought she was talking about me, but then she reeled in the speakerphone at Costco, and it's not
you got
me.
that.
It's not me.
But you think about though, all they've got some finance, some financial cush. They can take some risk. They're operators at heart, right? They learned how to fix stuff as a kid all the way through, right? So if we can pair either across generations or just find those unicorn boomers that are tech nerds in their soul, right? Like because I think we see both weaknesses and strengths in that generation of entrepreneurs. And it's so fun to work with the full gamut. Because what their formative thoughts about work, about business, about customers, about success and failure is so different, but incredibly fun to
So
play
do you have a
with.
favorite generation to work with? Read Jeff's mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, it's
That's
like,
interesting.
what's your favorite generation to work with, and what are the dichotomies between them? Like,
Yeah,
which ones are more risk averse versus, fuck it, let's go. Right? That's good. That's $1. So.
That's $1.
There it is.
What's
Throw it in.
funny is that all Mary Beth's current employees are like millennial, and
Z.
so you got to be really careful how you answer this.
So I'm gonna take a position here, and y'all can
See,
challenge it.
the way I'd like to address that, though, Connor, is
Yeah.
it takes 3 millennials to make one Mary Beth.
That is true. I'm not going to debate that.
Yeah, I don't know. Here's my take on millennials. I see that generation, and obviously stereotype, blah, blah, caveat, whatever. I actually see that generation as having two distinct camps. And a friend of mine coined this, I can't take credit, but there's millennials and then there's megalennials. So the millennials are the ones that give the gen all the bad raps, right? They're way too interested in their own, boundaries and work-life balance and boba and whatever else. And their definition of hard is different, than some. And they look for occasions to feel like maybe the circumstance are the reason that something is hard or not going well or whatever. And it is all through this, how does it make me feel, kind of millennial filter. Unsurprisingly, those don't make very good entrepreneurs, because you've got to be willing to
They
take.
don't make good employees.
Yeah, there you go. But the megalennials, the ones that are like, leave us the controls, would you please, boomers and you cynical Gen X, jerks. Let us run the place. We are going in a better direction. Y'all have, and you catch one of those with right idea, right attitude, right team, right momentum, and I'll back them any day.
Lightning in a bottle, huh?
Right. Yeah. So I think it's across the spectrum.
I'm going to speak to millennials quick because that's where I live too. The other thing that I notice about millennials, being one, is there's so much R&D that has come into that idea. They've thought, because how many ways can I fail this? Okay, I'm going to solve that problem, I'm going to solve that problem, I'm going to solve that problem. And then, all right, here's my product, and it is real close to being exactly what it needs to be, because they've already got the anxiety. All millennials have the anxiety. I've got to solve all these problems first. And I think that that's something that's unique to that generation. Like there's the failing upward, We got people who can fail upward and be like, I just fell into this. This is amazing. I'm just the best person ever. And then there's
I
people
like how
who,
she looked at me when she said that. Twice.
I met Miss Pam. No, so, and then you have the people who are really just dogged in that. Here, look at you. The people who are just dogged in that too. Just, I have this idea and it's going to work come hell or high water. I think that, there's people who do that very loudly, and then there's people who, I'm going to get this as close to perfect as possible.
I think you're totally right, but I would apply my little millennial, megalennial.
Yes, I would agree
lens
with that.
to it, because the millennial is making it right for them, right? Unfortunately, we see a lot of entrepreneurs who are keenly interested in solving a problem that they feel deeply about. Nothing wrong with that. Some of the best founders in the world started their journey because something, personally felt like it needed to be tackled for the world. But that what their definition of perfect, if it is all about what they would want, versus a megalennial that's like, okay, problem I care about, but now let's go see what the world thinks about perfect, right? Like what the world wants solved about it. And they sort of objectively and intellectually, honestly, like look at that from market, from investor, from partners, from customers. And so I'm happy for that, sort of anxiety-driven perfectionism. Sorry about the anxiety part. But it's got to be externally focused, right, on what signals you're getting from the world and the marketplace and the investors and the partners, as opposed to, but I'm going to tend to my baby because this is my, the problem I'm solving. Fair?
Yeah, and I think most founders have an ego, right? I think the types of egos I've noticed at least are different from a millennial to Mary Beth's point. The millennial founders that do have that ego, that are not listening to the market, are not validating a product. They just think I know what the world needs, but then you're not listening to the world, so you don't actually know anything. Those are the most frustrating people to talk to. But I will also say on older generations as well, there's an ego that comes from, I was in the corporate world for X amount of years and I know this, but maybe things have changed and they're not listening to the market, but their ego is telling them this is what the world needs. And I think, the market is like the top.
The measure.
If people aren't going to buy it, then you don't have anything.
Well, it's interesting when we have the opportunity to work with entrepreneurs that are sort of my age or older, who have maybe a corporate background or were successful in other means, right? Even if they were sort of entrepreneurs, but maybe in, more Main Street or other, right? Like this is a different kind of venture for them. The key coaching is what of their strengths, what of all those skills they developed, what of all that, all those projects they honchoed or things that they tackled in the corporate world, what translates and what should they not bring with them? So if you're tied to, what got me here won't get me there. Well, that is so true when where you're here is starting a new venture, because you've got to bring discernment and judgment and all the things that your years have given you, but you've got to ditch your ideas about pace of change and who to listen to,
security
and right, and risk. Yeah,
there it is again, risk. That's always been my thing is the risk.
I am so in awe of entrepreneurs that can bet the farm, that can just dive all into it, right? And it is what has changed industries and built our nation. So we got to give them props. But boy, you bet the farm and then don't listen. It doesn't turn out super well usually.
Not usually a good formula.
But that's the beautiful part of ego too, like the confidence, should I say? Like these people believe in themselves, and that's, you can't put a number on that. So the respect I have for all founders is there.
That
but
fire.
Just because you're a founder doesn't make you, God.
Right.
Which sometimes I think
brings us to Gen Z.
You can
on one hand, there is a level of sort of, youth and hubris that's necessary, right? If you really understood as a 20-something how little you know, you'd be paralyzed. You wouldn't do anything. We all would have been, right? Yes. So yeah, you need some level of outsized confidence in your own instincts, abilities, and knowledge. But yeah, it can also really work against you. The folks, it's funny, Gen Z, we see a couple different kinds of entrepreneurs. And again, there's great from all generations, but some of them are like, you people don't know how this should be done. I'm going to show you, which is a great instinct, but back to the listening thing. And then the other is, I'm going to become an entrepreneur to make my life easier, right? I'm not going to work for the man. I'm going to start this business so that I'm going to be in control. Now, we help every entrepreneur that comes through the door, but our wheelhouse is like innovation-based, scalable, growth-minded. Like you want to grow beyond your neighborhood, go beyond. But there are a ton of entrepreneurs out there, most of them forming what we would call kind of lifestyle businesses. Nothing wrong with that. Right. Apple pie, Main Street, America, right? Need them. But, when you're going to hang out a shingle to create an advisory firm, maybe, you ought to have more than a couple of months worth of life experience on your belt. So we see this, we see Gen Z gliding upward on this, probably false now, but they'll get there eventually, sort of confidence in their knowledge and capabilities. And by the way, with tech in their pocket, they can do a lot more than not. And then we see some of the Gen Zs that take that, I've been in the big boy, big girl workplace for 6 years and I got it. And turn that into a predetermined notion of what business they should build. And that gets that doesn't usually end well.
So when those that think that they're gonna be their own boss, it's gonna be, I'm gonna take the easy route. How long is it till they realize that you are going to spend more time than you ever imagined you would working for the man?
There's a great founder, Miguel Johns, who's in Wichita.
Miguel, yes.
Miguel,
I
he's the
Miguel.
man. Great guy.
Yeah.
And he like, people ask him all the time, how do I become an entrepreneur? He's just like, just do it.
Just start.
Just do it. Just start. And it's those people that quit their jobs and try to do it, and they're like, this is too hard. Well, they're not entrepreneurs anymore. They go find a different job. Like, you're going to, like, every single entrepreneur gets kicked in the teeth, right? And
even the good ones.
Mm-hmm.
Like
yeah,
even
every
folks with
person.
like where on paper it should all, no, that's the market.
And that's where I think you see the folks that stay the course. And I was in the startup world in Chicago. I was employee number 2 at a few different startups, and I got kicked in the teeth. You know, there was part of me that believed in myself and had maybe an inflated ego in my early 20s, and I wanted to go to Chicago and try it out. And it was very humbling. I learned a whole lot, and it was a real world MBA. That's what I walked away with.
Nice, yeah.
But I was bartending on the side and caddying and trying to make it
trying
happen.
to eat.
Yeah, exactly. And like people live different lifestyles, so it's like, what do you lifestyle, or do you really want to make this happen?
Right.
And, I think it filters people out.
So Connor, as we wrap things up, any parting shots for our audience about starting a business, entrepreneurship, the Sport Foundation, those kind of things?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of like a blanket way to say of saying create collisions. I'm speaking to myself when I say create collisions, but the more and more that I've been in this space, that's where the real magic happens, is being in a room with someone that you might not have been in a room with. And that's where ESOs provide a whole lot of value. Like our event yesterday, that's the value that we see that makes us excited and aligned with our mission, to seeing some investor from Minnesota talking with a founder from Wichita or from rural Kansas. So I think, like, if you're building in stealth mode and you're not testing the market, test the market, and maybe get out a little bit. But not to say you have to do every single ESO program that exists And those that are doing every other program exists, maybe you should be doing a little more stealth mode, and there's a happy balance.
Right.
But the community exists for a reason, and the collisions can be powerful.
Okay. How about you, Mary Beth? Any parting shots?
Yeah, I mean, along those lines, there's no excuse for not doing alone what you can do alone, right? We'll have entrepreneurs come to us and be like, so how do I incorporate my business? And I'm like, well, you Google search and, right? Like, so, you've got to be able to kind of chart your course and take initiative, or you're not going to give off very good signs that you're a sort of teachable, real founder. So find the things you should be doing in your deep thoughts, right? Figuring out, and then, as Connor said, sort of get out, because there is power. Entrepreneurship is never easy, and there are things you should and have to do alone. But if you are making it a lonely journey, you're leaving money on the table, and that's going to be true for each stage of your business. That random conversation that's going to give you a different idea about who your ideal customer is, and that program that's going to help you de-risk some assumptions you have about how you should go to market. And that investor that is, you are not ready for them to write a check now, but they're going to give you, with a chip and dip in your hand at a networking event, they're going to give you, if you listen, what they need you to grow into for them to care, right? So do what you got to do alone, but then reach out and absorb. Just be a sponge for all that you can. And if you're building a business that you don't care about, there's something wrong. But if you're building a business about something only you care about, like, that's not great either. And so you've got to find this holy, confluence of something you care about that people are actually willing to pay to fix or improve or buy or do or spend on. And that, you got to have both sides of that equation before you pull up your big boy, big girl pants and dive in.
Okay. Thanks for joining us today, and thanks for everything you do for the startup community in Wichita.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for
you,
watching.
guys.
We'll see you next time.